I want to tell you about the Tuesday I sat in my car in a Kroger parking lot for 45 minutes. I just couldn't figure out how we were going to afford groceries. Not because we were officially broke. Marcus made really good money as a project manager, and I was working part-time doing bookkeeping from home. We should have been totally fine. We kept telling each other we were fine. But there I was, doing math in my head that never seemed to add up right, stressing over buying the name-brand pasta sauce. It was August, and I had the engine off to save gas. Watching other women roll their carts out, something just cracked open in me that day. Just a hairline fracture. I didn't say a word to Marcus that night. I just came home, made dinner, asked about his day, and filed the feeling away like I always did. Marcus was, well, he was warm. He had this dry, quiet sense of humor that made you feel like you were in on some private joke. He really paid attention. When we met, I was 28 and in a really good place. I had my own apartment, I was independent, and I was building a solid little career for myself. He pursued me with this steady, patient energy. He wasn't flashy at all. He just kept showing up until it felt like the most romantic thing a person could do. We got married, bought a house, had our daughter, and somewhere in there, so gradually I didn't even notice, I became someone who didn't fully understand her own finances. It happened in small steps. Marcus took over paying the bills early on because he said he was better with numbers. Which is kind of ironic, since I'm literally a bookkeeper. Then our accounts got consolidated into a joint checking account that he primarily managed. My income went in, his income went in, and he handled what came out. I wasn't kept away from it exactly. I could log in whenever I wanted. But whenever I asked about something, like why the balance was lower than I expected, or why we couldn't do a weekend trip that I thought we could afford, Marcus would explain it in this patient, measured way. It made me feel slightly stupid for asking. Not mean. No raised voice. Just this gentle implication that I was missing something obvious. And that I didn't need to worry. And I let that happen. I want to own that. I let it happen because it was easier. Because I was tired. I was caring for a toddler and working. And someone else handling things felt like a gift. But the math kept not working, and I kept filing away the feeling. Just putting it somewhere I didn't have to look at it. The second crack came the Christmas that his mother, Carol, got a new car. She was always in a mild state of crisis, so people would keep needing her. And Marcus, her golden boy, he gave her that help regularly. I knew he helped his mom out sometimes, and I thought that was admirable. What I didn't know was the scale. She showed up in a used Honda that she casually mentioned Marcus had helped her with. Later that evening, I was washing dishes. I heard her telling her sister on the phone that Marcus had covered the down payment. $4,200. I stood at that sink with water running over my hands, and I thought, where did that come from? Because I knew what our checking account looked like. And $4,200 had not moved through it without me noticing. I didn't bring it up that night, not with her in the house. But 2 days later, after she'd left, I sat down with Marcus. I asked him as calmly as I could about the money. 2 days after she left, I finally sat down with Marcus. I kept my voice calm and asked about the $4,200. He didn't look guilty or caught. He just looked exhausted. Like he was tired of a conversation we'd literally never had. He brushed it off, saying he had some old savings from before we got married. Said he used it for family things. I looked right at him and said, "We're family." He just gave me that patient little smile. And he said, "You know what I mean." I didn't even argue. I just said, okay, walked out and went to our daughter's room. I stood in the doorway watching Lily sleep. My heart was just pounding in my chest, because I realized right then I genuinely did not know what he meant. After that, I started paying attention differently. I knew I couldn't just take his word for things anymore. I needed my own record. So I grabbed this little composition notebook. I hid it in my nightstand. It became my secret ledger. Every few nights, I'd sit by the bedside lamp and write down what I could actually see. Deposits, bills, groceries, the withdrawals I could actually verify. I mean, I'm literally a bookkeeper. It was time I started acting like one in my own house. It didn't take long to spot the gaps. They weren't huge, all-at-once kind of drains. Just a consistent bleed. A few hundred here, maybe 1,000 there. On their own, you could explain them away. But together, they formed a shape. I spent months second-guessing myself. I'd watch him bring me coffee in the morning, smiling, being sweet, and I'd tell myself I was just being paranoid. That's what patient gaslighting does to you. It doesn't make you doubt him. It makes you doubt yourself. But the notebook was just facts. And facts don't gaslight you. They don't try to make you feel crazy. They just sit there, being true, waiting for you to be ready to see them. It took me 8 more months to see it clearly. And it only happened because he made a mistake. Nothing dramatic. He just used my laptop to print something one afternoon. The turning point, and he forgot to clear the browser history. Later, I sat down to look for a recipe. I opened the browser and saw a bank website in the recent history. It wasn't our bank. It was some credit union I didn't recognize at all. And some quiet animal instinct inside me just made me freeze. I didn't snoop right away. I just closed the laptop and walked away. I had to get through the rest of the evening like everything was totally normal. I made dinner. I put Lily to bed. I even kissed Marcus goodnight and waited in the dark until I heard his breathing slow down. Once he was completely asleep, I slipped out of bed. I walked down the hall to the kitchen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would wake him up. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened that laptop. I didn't type anything at first. I just sat there for probably 5 minutes, staring at the blank screen. Finally, I typed in the credit union's website. I braced myself, but I didn't even need a password. He was still logged in from earlier that afternoon. I've tried to explain what it felt like to see that account, but words never really cut it. It wasn't shock. It was like watching a blurry photograph suddenly sharpen into focus. The account had been opened 4 months before we even got married. And sitting right there on the screen, staring back at me, was a balance of just over $19,000. I scrolled through the transaction history, and it looked like a literal payroll system. Just regular clockwork transfers to his mother, his aunt, and a cousin I'd barely even met. Every single month, without fail, for the entire length of our marriage. He was running a private welfare system for his family that he never bothered to tell me about. And the deposits? They were transfers straight from our joint account. Small enough to fly under the radar, 150 here, 200 there. Just bleeding us dry, one tiny cut at a time. I sat there and did the math in my head. Then I grabbed a piece of scrap paper and did it again. I honestly didn't trust my own brain at that point. In 4 years of marriage, roughly $60,000 had moved through that secret account. That was money I had worked for. Money I had contributed to what I believed was our shared life. I thought about every time I'd picked the store brand pasta sauce to save a few bucks. I thought about every vacation we hadn't taken because he said things were tight. I thought about every time I felt ashamed for asking about our own money. Every time he looked at me like I was the one who didn't get it.
I sat at that kitchen table for a long time.
And then I did something that surprised me. I didn't cry.
I didn't spiral into a panic.
Instead, I felt something settle inside me. Heavy, cold, and very, very clear. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos of every single screen. I documented every page of the transaction history. I sent all those photos to an email address he didn't know about. It was an old account I'd created for a freelance client and hadn't used since. I made sure every piece of evidence was backed up somewhere safe.
Once the emails went through, I cleared the browser cache.
The exact way he must have forgotten to do. I didn't want to leave a single trace that I had been there. Then I closed the laptop. I walked back through the dark house to our bedroom. The silence felt completely different now. It wasn't the quiet of a peaceful home anymore. It was the quiet of a crime scene. I got back into bed and lay in the dark next to him. I listened to him breathing, completely oblivious. His entire world had just shifted. I stared at the ceiling and thought, I know exactly what I'm doing next. The very next morning, as soon as Marcus left for work, I picked up the phone. I called my friend Dana, who's a real estate attorney. I knew she didn't handle divorces, but I knew she'd know exactly who I should talk to. Within 2 days, I was sitting in a consultation with a family law attorney named Patricia. She had this quiet, matter-of-fact energy that I desperately needed right then. There was no drama with her, just absolute clarity about what we were going to do. She looked right at me and said, "Not yet. We don't say a word until we have every single thing documented. We need the full picture first." So I waited. 6 weeks of cooking dinner, watching TV, and tucking Lily in. I was living my normal life while secretly planning my exit. Every night, I had to sleep next to someone I was legally and strategically untangling myself from. Honestly, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm not built for strategic patience. Every cell in my body wanted to walk in there, slam my phone on the table, and watch him try to explain it. But I held back. Lily deserved the most stable outcome I could give her. I wasn't going to let my anger rush me into a worse position. During those 6 weeks, my attorney and I documented everything. We pulled our joint account statements for the whole marriage and mapped out his exact pattern. Patricia told me it's legally called dissipation of marital assets. He took money from our marriage for people outside of it, without my consent. And that mattered. The day I finally confronted him, I was ready. I'd moved my half of the money, hired Patricia, and packed bags for me and Lily to stay at my sister's. I did it on a Sunday morning over coffee. Lily was at my mom's. I just looked at him and said, "We need to talk about the Riverside Credit Union account." I watched his face do something I'd never seen before. That patient, measured mask of his just slipped, and underneath it, he looked raw and completely terrified. He tried several different tactics in the conversation that followed. First, he claimed I had just misunderstood the whole thing. He tried to frame it as protecting his family, like any good son would do. Then he got angry, expecting me to shrink back. But none of it worked, because I wasn't asking for an explanation. I wasn't there to be talked back into confusion. I told him I was leaving with Lily for 2 weeks. I told him I had an attorney and we'd only talk through legal channels. For the first time in our marriage, we were both operating in the exact same reality. He looked at me and said, "You're really doing this." And I looked right back at him and said, "I really am." The divorce took 11 months, and Patricia was extraordinary. The dissipation claim held up, so he had to account for the money he took.
I got a settlement that reflected what was stolen and a solid custody arrangement for Lily. I'm not going to tell you the aftermath was clean.
It really wasn't. For about 4 months, I cried in the bathroom every single morning.
It was the only place I could be a complete mess without Lily seeing me.
There were nights I lay awake trying to inventory our entire relationship. I kept wondering what was genuine and what was just a performance. It's a very particular kind of grief. You don't just lose a marriage, you lose confidence in your own perception.
What helped me was going back to work full-time. Using my brain for something concrete reminded me that I was actually good at things.
I hadn't been bad at numbers for 4 years.
I had been deliberately kept uncertain. Lily is 6 now. She's funny, bossy, and completely obsessed with frogs. Marcus is in her life, and I keep that relationship as clean and professional as I can.
Not for him. I do it for her.
I think a lot about that woman sitting in the Kroger parking lot, the one doing math on the back of a water bill.
I want to go back and sit with her. I tell her, your instincts aren't broken. The math isn't wrong.
You're not the one who doesn't understand things. You're the one who's about to demand to understand everything.
When you finally stop doubting yourself, there's no hesitation left. You just make the move. Absolute certainty, I made it. And I would make it again. People think financial abuse is always this loud, obvious thing, like someone literally taking your wallet or locking you out of the bank. But honestly, it usually starts out looking like a favor, just someone offering to take one more stressful thing off your plate. When you're exhausted from working and raising a toddler, you're desperate for help. So when your partner says they've got the bills handled, you just say thank you. You don't question it because you want to believe they've got your back. You let the details blur because looking too closely just takes too much energy. But here's the thing I learned the hard way. The numbers are the actual story of your life. Every dollar is a choice, a priority, a piece of your future. And when you hand over the math, you're basically giving up your voice.
I actually still have that old composition notebook.
It's tucked away in the bottom drawer of my desk now. I definitely don't need it to track secret withdrawals anymore. But I keep it because it's proof of the exact moment I finally woke up. Looking at it just reminds me of what it felt like to be completely in the dark. To sit there doubting my own sanity over grocery money? It reminds me of that heavy, cold feeling when the truth finally hit me. It's kind of my own personal monument to trusting my gut. I'm making absolutely sure Lily grows up different. We talk about saving. We do math together. We keep it all out in the open. I want her to know she should never let anyone else hold the keys to her life. She's never going to have to guess where she stands. Rebuilding my life wasn't just about getting the money back. It was really about recovering the person I used to be, before I let myself be quietly managed into a corner. I'm finally back to being the woman who knows exactly what she's worth. If you're sitting in your car right now, staring at a receipt, doing math in your head that just won't add up, I really need you to listen to me. You aren't crazy and you aren't bad at numbers. The confusion is the point. It's designed that way. The second you stop filing away the things that make you uncomfortable, that's the exact moment your life changes. I know it's terrifying to look at the facts when they might blow up your whole reality. But facts don't gaslight you. And the truth is the only thing you can actually build a future on. Trust the math. Trust your gut. When you finally see the full picture, you won't even hesitate. You'll just make the move and you'll never look back. I made it. And I promise you, you can too. Sometimes I still drive past that same Kroger. I'll look over at the parking lot and just remember how heavy the air felt that August.
It's wild how a completely ordinary place can hold so much of your past.
I think a lot about that woman sitting in the car. The one doing math on the back of a water bill. The one who learned to just file away all the things that didn't add up. I really want to go back and just sit with her for a minute. Not to warn her, honestly. I don't know that I'd change the timeline, even if I had the power to do it. But I just want to tell her one thing. That quiet thing you keep almost noticing? It's real. You're not crazy for feeling like the ground is shifting underneath you. Your instincts are not broken. The math isn't wrong. You are not the one who doesn't understand things. You've just been carefully managed into believing that you do. Actually, you're the one who's about to start demanding to understand everything. And that's the crazy thing about being gaslit so patiently for so long. When you finally stop doubting yourself, the hesitation just vanishes. You don't second-guess the move anymore. You don't wait for permission or an apology. You just make it. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. It took everything I had to untangle my life from his. There were days I didn't think I had the energy to keep fighting. But every time I looked at my daughter, I knew I couldn't stop. I got my life back. I got my mind back. And I built a home where the math always adds up. Nobody will ever hold the keys to my reality again. I made it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But to be standing here today, completely free, I would make it again. I think a lot about that woman sitting in the Kroger parking lot. The one doing math on the back of a water bill. The one who had learned to file away the things that didn't add up. I want to go back and sit with her for a minute. Not to warn her. I don't know that I'd change the timeline, even if I could. But just to tell her, the thing you keep almost noticing is real. Your instincts are not broken. You aren't crazy for feeling the ground shifting. The math isn't wrong. You are not the one who doesn't understand things. You're actually the only one seeing it clearly. You are the one who is about to start demanding to understand everything. And that's going to change your whole life. That's the thing about being gaslit so patiently for so long. When you finally stop doubting yourself, there's no hesitation in it. You don't second-guess the move. You don't wait for permission or an apology. You just make it. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Untangling my life from a lie took everything I had. But looking back at where I was, and looking at where Lily and I are now, I made it. I made it. And I would make that exact same choice again. Every single time.